How's it going, everybody? It's your host, the Sports Moose, here with Thunderdome Puckcast, your weekly Lightning video podcast here on YouTube and Facebook. So excited to be with you for this 2021-2022 season. We're excited to be with you every step of the way as the Lightning go for not one, not two, but 3 Stanley Cups in a row. Of course, great show for you tonight to get you prepared for the season. We'll talk about all the offseason moves, all the offseason activity surrounding the Lightning, get you up to speed with that. We'll preview, of course, our game with Pittsburgh. We'll talk about a few other new things that are going on with the NHL season as we face off here. Puck drop. And, of course, we'll preview the week coming up for the Bolts. All that and more here on Thunderdome Puckcast. Thank you so much for joining us here back on the Thunderdome Puckcast. A big welcome back. If you're a past viewer, if you're new, well, thank you. Thank you for joining us here at the Sports Moose page. Tuesdays we'll be dropping videos every week for Thunderdome Puckcast. And then Thursdays is already our weekly drop for $10 sports gambling. We'll be throwing some hockey picks on there finally now that the hockey season is back. So again, thank you for finding us here. Make sure to like and subscribe as well if you do like what's going on. I think if you're watching us on Facebook, you got to give the Sports Moose a follow the page to make sure that you are counted among the followers. Lots to talk about, of course. Kind of a crazy off-season, more so kind of a predictable off-season for the Lightning, coming off a big Stanley Cup victory once again. Almost a normal season, right? The Bolts taking a lot of criticism for winning, 2 fake Stanley Cups with shorter seasons or the bubble season in 2019. So really an opportunity this year to put it all together once again. Finally, a regular 82-game season, regular playoffs, regular start times for all these games as well. Playoffs starting hopefully in April this year. So can they three-peat and prove that they can not only win in the toughest of circumstances, but win in a normal season despite all the insanity and cup circumvention accusations that have occurred over the past year or two? I'm excited for this season, but as we'll talk about, offseason really gutting a lot of the heart and soul. I mean, you can't say it's the core of the team, but a lot of the heart and soul of the Bolts, really what made us tick. Really can't underestimate the value of your third line, fourth line, and some of your depth defensemen. You just can't undervalue those guys, and I think JBB, Julien Brisebois, made some great moves to try and replace what we lost, but really I don't think you could replace a Yanni Gourde, especially losing him for nothing. I don't think you can replace that third line. I think we're going to try very hard, and I think we have the organizational depth to do it. It's just I don't know if we're going to get the results this year or immediately, or maybe if we're lucky towards the second of the season, some of our rookies or 2-3 year players are really finding themselves and ready to somewhat perform at a level that to replace what we lost the third line and a few other key players. So let's talk about exactly what happened over the offseason. Quite a few moves. Again, lots of what we kind of expected. I think we had a couple candidates that we knew we were going to lose. Of course, we have right up there on the big board the big losses and some of the gains over the offseason, starting, of course, with the expansion draft. Big news, of course, long wait for Seattle, Pacific Northwest, another team NHL gets to 32 with Seattle coming on board finally this year. Of course, a couple games away to start off the season for the Kraken. So excited they went with the Kraken. We were expecting something boring, something, commercial, something with the sock guys or something like that. Went with the Kraken. Absolutely love it. I think a great reflection of the city and hopefully a great reflection of the now more fun NHL. Maybe they just love the marketing capabilities of the Kraken. But Yanni Gourde, of course, long rumored to be the pick of the Kraken, losing for nothing. I think that's what really hurts the most is, and it's just the nature of the expansion draft. You lose a guy for nothing, and it really stings. It sucks. It's absolutely sucks. There's no way around it. No value. He's just kind of gone one day. Of course, recovering from shoulder surgery, may not be ready for the first couple of games. Might be out for the first month or two for the Kraken. I haven't seen any updates on the shoulder. I know the most recent interview I saw, he was really excited, of course, to be with the Kraken, as a few others are. I think you can expect the Kraken to make some noise. We'll probably do some quick segments in the upcoming week or two of our picks for the playoffs, or who's going to win the division, or we think the divisions are going to stack up. Don't be surprised about the Kraken. And of course, this is a Lightning podcast show, but quick thought about the Kraken. At first, didn't take super crazy marquee names during the expansion draft. I watched that from start to beginning on ESPN. Couple, head scratchers, but overall, I think they're going to be a solid team because they were smart. They built from the back forward. I think they have great goaltending. I think they have a pretty solid defensive core, and hopefully they can score some goals. I mean, Jordan Eberle, among others, are going to be expected to score some goals there, but I like what they've done. And of course, Yanni Gourde really fits into those plans, hopefully as a 25-30 goal scorer. But going along the third line for the Lightning, the former third line, I should say, the loss of Blake Coleman, again, not unexpected. Surely, I think we thought we would sign maybe one of either he or Barclay Goodrow. We lost both of them. So Coles goes up to Calgary, and Barclay Goodrow getting a pretty good contract. Some may say a little bit of an overpayment, but again, the Rangers certainly have some of the money to do that, and they're young, up and coming. I'm excited for them in the upcoming years now that Henrik Lundqvist is retired, and some of the new blood coming into the Rangers. I think it's going to be really exciting. Barclay Goodrow to the Rangers, and kind of a weird activity that happened. Of course, Lightning picking up some dead cap space, trading with the Chicago Blackhawks, picking up Brent Seabrook's dead money. Of course, Seabrook out, not ever likely to play in the NHL ever again. So Tyler Johnson with the Chicago Blackhawks via trade. I think a good move for them. A few pundits picking the Blackhawks to be a Black Horse playoff team. I'm not sure if they're there quite yet, though. Everything gets crazy with Marc-Andre Fleury in the mix, and not knowing if you're going to get sensational goaltending. I mean, you could absolutely get Vezina level goaltending like we saw last year from Fleury, and lo and behold, maybe the Blackhawks are back in the playoffs. Jonathan Taves is back. Patty Kane hopefully is fully healthy. I think Blackhawks are a team to be on the lookout for, at least. Really, for the Bolts, and I'll have to say, I don't have our defenseman up here. I'm already blanking on his name. Three big additions here. Of course, we have Curtis McElhinney hitting 38, 39 years old. Of course, not really playing his best hockey last year. I think his goals against in the mid threes. Time for a new backup goalie. Brian Elliott's available, totally serviceable. Great mentor, hopefully, to Vasi. Isn't going to be, I think, can push him to play better, but certainly isn't going to be trying to split the net. We all know it's going to be Vasi's net for as long as he wants it here in Tampa. So great pickup with Brian Elliott, I think. Nice, safe serviceable backup. And certainly, I think last year was an anomaly for Philadelphia goaltending in general. Elliott not having a great year behind Carter Hart. Hart also not having a good year last year. I think a little bit of an anomaly there. I like the pick up here, of course, wearing the sweet throwback Nordiques jersey, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare. Pierre-Edouard Bellemare. I like this pick. I like it. I think trying to make up for some of that grit of the third line, certainly somewhat comparable maybe to Seti Paquette. Yeah, kind of would like the energy. It's going to be interesting to see, especially with Smith making the team this year. What kind of third and fourth line we're going to put together. A little bit of a scorer's touch, right? But mostly some grit and sandpaper. Speaking of grit and sandpaper, the ultimate, if you can't beat him, let's join him. Cory Perry. I actually like this signing a lot. Cory Perry joining the Tampa Bay Lightning after losing to the Bolts the last 2 years with the Stars and the Canadiens, respectively. I think, again, the ability to score goals, we saw a little bit in the preseason. I love this move. He's a pest. We need annoying people on our team. We've kind of missed that. We kind of missed that a little bit last year with Paquette not really being here at all. I know some others really were trying to step into that kind of pest role, but Cory Perry does it so well. I'm excited for the dynamic with Cory Perry, Patty Maroon. I think that's going to be a great line. Of course, when really evaluating the options we had, I mean, you had names out there like Killorn, you had Palat, we knew Johnson was likely expendable, probably needed to be expendable with the cap hit. Cirelli was thrown out there. I mean, there's some crazy thoughts of, maybe Stamkos has played his last game as a Tampa Bay Lightning captain. All sorts of craziness out there. And I think you got to give Julien BriseBois A-B+ on this offseason. Again, Pooch's cap hit kind of getting back on the books. The Lightning, among other teams, having used that, I guess, loophole in the rules to circumvent the cap hit of Nikita Kucherov, who was out for the entire season last year. So a lot of pressure for the Lightning to make some moves, try to preserve what they have, and see what kind of values they could find, not only in free agency, but as we transition over to talk about the opening night roster. I think we have some value in the young guys that we continue to draft well and develop in our system in Syracuse. Lo and behold, they make it to the big show. I mean, it's absolutely amazing what you can do as an organization if you continue to draft well and you can get young guys to entry-level contracts, to bridge contracts. It's a great value. It's a great value. You're going to lose people along the way. You have to make those critical decisions when it's time to make those critical decisions. But Taylor Radish, someone that's been in the system for a little bit, excited that he's going to be on the opening night roster. One of the Foots, is it Cal who's still with us? Cal Foot, welcome to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Officially going to be one of our 7 defensemen on most nights. Forgot about Zach Bogosian. We reacquired Zach Bogosian as one of our picks. He made the opening night roster, so maybe kind of your 7 or 8 defensemen there. Probably going to be scratched a fair amount, kind of like we saw with one of the Shens, with Luke Shen over last season, the year before as well. Of course, lots to talk about as we lead up to opening night. First and foremost, of course, got to talk about that opening roster, at least briefly. Again, not too many surprises. Lightning electing to keep 23 up, so we'll be scratching 3 most nights. Looks like 14 forwards, 7 defensemen, and our 2 goaltenders. Of course, we talked about the pickup of Bellemare, who I think will be somewhat critical to having a sandpapery type approach to that we may have lost of some of our departures, getting what the second or year 1.5 is going to look like from Ross Colton, I think is going to be huge, as well as what version of Matthew Joseph shows up. Because if you remember, kind of early last year and even in the bubble year before the pandemic happened, Matthew Joseph, if you go back to some of our earliest episodes of Thunderdome Puckcast, I thought was going to be breakout star, no sophomore slump, and he really struggled to get off the gates. Looked a lot better last year. I think maybe not as big of a role in the playoffs as we would have liked, but played pretty well. I think he's developing well. But is he ready to take that next stride? I mean, I think we're putting a lot of money on that. I think we're depending on Matthew Joseph to really take his game up to the next level. Maybe kind of jumping into that Yanni Gourde realm. I don't know if Joseph's really a 25, 30 goal scorer. Maybe he's got it in him. So I think that's what we're banking on here, that at least trying to recoup some of that lost offensive Gourde's departure. Again, Sorelli, no surprise. Interesting pickup. Boris Kachuk, Canadian, young kid, 21, 22 years old. We know about Killorn, Kucherov, of course, Maroon, Corey Perry. We talked about that addition. Braden Point, I feel like, never gets enough attention in the media and recognition as one of the best players in the league. So hopefully another breakout, kind of this coming out party for Braden Point, especially now as we move into ESPN, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Taylor Radish, really only the big rookie name from development that, kind of surprised not seeing Barboulay in there. He was wavered down with Andre Schuster, I think, earlier today. And so they'll start their season out in Syracuse. Of course, if injuries, I'm sure we'll see him. I'm sure we'll see Schuster if there's a defensive injury. And then rounding out with Jamel Smith, who I'm also excited to maybe see a bigger impact from him. He's kind of been a bubble player, strong seasons in Syracuse, part of the Black Aces over the playoffs the last year or two, and actually stepped in a couple games. I don't know if it was playoffs, but definitely the season during the season last year when we were kind of falling off the rails of all sorts of injuries. Of course, defensively, same names. I think really the only loss of David Zabard, we knew was a rental, and Luke Shen moving on. Zach Bogosian, Chernak, Cal Foote, who hopefully is NHL ready at this point. Hedman, McDonough, Jan Ruda, who your results may vary on what Jan Ruda we're going to get, and of course Mikhail Sergachev. So feeling pretty good. Again, building from the back out. We have the best goalie in the world, and I think I'm going to say definitely two of the top 6 defensive pairings in the league. Maybe we'll put that out. 2 of the top 10 defensive pairings in the league. I really like what we have when we pair up Eddie. I know the stats have been suggesting for him to play with Jan Ruda. Here's to see where we're going to put him this year. Maybe he actually pairs up with Sergachev. Then, of course, McDonough and Chernak would be pretty nasty as well. That's your opening night roster. Pretty excited for that. Of course, the other big news from the offseason as we prepare for opening night, it's opening night for the NHL's return on ESPN. Wait for it. Those are the sweet sounds we've been waiting for. The song is back. NHL's back on ESPN. Of course, great roster of coverage. Some notable names, of course, Steve Levy on there. Excited to see Callie as part of the analyst crew. Lots of representation of women. We all know Linda Cohn has been a puckhead all her life with some of the early work on ESPN2 with NHL shows. Great to see Hillary Knight and other Olympians being represented. And of course, good old Barry Melrose. He's there. You can't have the NHL on ESPN without Barry Melrose. He's there. Don't worry. Puck Daddy himself with some of the reporting and podcasts. I like Tom McDonough. Steve Levy, of course, play-by-play, the primary announcer. Couple holdovers from NBC, of course. Brian Boucher, who I actually really liked Between the Glass and Rick DiPietro's alive. That's great to see too. Rick, I was actually thinking about you the other day and kind of your tough career. I'm more excited though for NHL on TNT, and I think what's a little bit disappointing about this is that it seems to be kind of a late night focus. So a lot of the West games are going to be on TNT. It seems as that package gets going. I think they get off the ground on this Wednesday with a doubleheader of themselves. Watch the broadcast during their one preseason game they had. There was the Flyers and like the Predators, or Flyers and maybe the Rangers. I don't even remember. But I felt like I was watching an NBC show. With Rick Tocchet was interesting. I think they had the whole I'm gonna basically pretend to be kicking the balls. We know that Wayne Gretzky's gonna be joining, and of course Biz Nasty is part of that panel as well. So I'm kind of curious to see if they're able to pull off somewhat of what the NBA on TNT does, kind of a wacky, zany, trying to connect with the audience out there. I'll give it a chance. I don't know how many times. I don't know if the Lightning play on TNT at all this year. I have to double check that schedule. I know they're on ESPN and ABC quite a bit, especially with the Stadium Series. Bolts, of course, playing in Nashville at Nissan Stadium in February. Hopefully tickets go for that on sale. Better believe I'll be there. But again, excited, a little bit more notoriety for the NHL, especially when it seemed like NBC wasn't promoting or pumping up or doing anything with that package with the NHL and NBC. So I'm excited to see what happens with it on ESPN and on TNT. Hopefully we get a crazy panel, kind of like Shaq and Charles Barkley, Wayne Gretzky and Biz Nasty. I don't know. I wonder what that dynamic's going to look like. And so while tomorrow night is opening night, it's opening weekend for many teams. The Lightning have 3 games this week. So what we'll do is, since we'll be dropping videos on Tuesday, kind of recap what happened in the past. So next video, we'll talk about these 3 games somewhat in depth, and then of course previewing the next week of games. So Pittsburgh, of course, we're so excited. The emotion of the banner raising finally in front of 20,000 fans. I'm hoping it's not a game that gets away from the Lightning, but just looking at Pittsburgh's roster, like I'm not impressed. Both of Evgeny Malkin and Crosby are injured, and unknown if they're going to be available for game 1. I think they're both not going to be available. Their defensive core taking big gambles on some of their trades and investments over time. Of course, Brian Dumoulin, other than Chris Letang, has been their longest tenured defenseman. Mike Matheson, Marcus Peterson, John Marino, and Mark Friedman. Those aren't exactly names that get you excited to. Yeah, claimed off waivers last year. Those aren't exactly names that get you excited or scared, I should say, for the Lightning to play offensively against this team. And when you take away Sidney Crosby and Geno Malkin, Kasperi Kapanen, I guess, kind of up and coming. Jake Gensel still, second, third, fourth liner, depending on what mood he's in or how well he's playing or not. Eddie Bluger, Jeff Carter is like 37. I mean, I don't know. Brock McGinn. Yeah, I mean, Brock McGinn maybe up and coming acquisition from Carolina, basically kind of their biggest free agent signing over the off season. There's no one else that really. There's no one else, like without Geno, without Sidney Crosby, and they have questionable goaltending. Now we saw the Tristan Jarry experience last year. Who do they have backing up? Casey DeSmith. So you have Casey DeSmith and Tristan Jarry as your goalies. I don't know. I mean, the Lightning just match up very well against that lineup. Should be a bloodbath. But again, maybe Pittsburgh's more solid than we think. Beginning of the season, who knows what we know. But when you're previewing Detroit and Washington again, I'm not going too in depth here at the beginning of the season. Detroit, I think, getting a little bit better. They end up putting in goal. I know Capitals goal situation, a little bit of a mess with Samsonov and Ericek. I forget. I know he struggled. He was good and then struggled a little bit last year. Don't know where you're going to have Samsonov, of course. Really, the offensive threat from Ovechkin. I mean, I think Capitals are built a lot better than, honestly, I feel a lot better than the Capitals roster than this Pittsburgh roster I just read through. I didn't believe it was this bad. Oof. I feel that the Penguins are going to have a rough year. I don't even know if they make the playoffs this year. Lightning are better than all three of these teams. Should be 3 W's, but again, it's the NHL. You never know what happens. Might be Washington's first home game in front of a raucous crowd on the weekend. Again, Detroit always finding a way to get better, even though the Lightning have seemed to have had their number for the past, what seems to be 10 years or so, or however long it's been since Detroit's made the jump over to the East and in the Lightning's division. I feel like we've carried the play there. But again, when you're looking in depth at the Pittsburgh roster, I think the Lightning match up very well. Fully expect this to be at worst a 2-1 start to the season. Probably should be a 3-0 start to the season for the Lightning. So we'll have hopefully a lot of good things to talk about in next week's episode. So that's the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for sticking it out with us. We're so excited for the 2021-22 season, and we're going to be more involved. Of course, we're going to have main videos dropping every Tuesday for Thunderdome Puckcast. Of course, we'll have special features and updates if there's injuries, if there's news, kind of quick 5-minute update videos dropping here on YouTube and on Facebook. So be on the lookout for that. Of course, our other shows coming up, $10 Sports if you're a sports gambler, new videos every Thursday, as well as quick hits, similar, just some quick videos over the weekend. And on Twitter, we're really huge on activity. Had some great interaction during the Sunday night football games and the Rays games. Tough loss of the Rays, of course, today. Disappointing ending to a great season for the Rays. Nevertheless, we'll probably do a third period live game watch tomorrow. Maybe we'll do a reaction to the banner drop and then kind of cut it, come back for the third period just to kick off the new season. And we'll do periodic game watches as well if you guys want to join us on live chat and interact with me. That's it for your host of Sports Moose. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week on Thunderdome Puckcast. Take care.